How's that?
That's good.
Okay. Like I am says we are live now, so it should be streaming over on YouTube as well, right? Is that how it kind
Nice.
of
We are
works?
live, yes.
All right, perfect. All right, well, welcome in. Hopefully, get a decent amount of audience jumping on here tonight. This is completely a fanboy episode of the 1948 Bowman set, so we're going to be excited to kind of jump into it tonight. I'm hoping to be able to kind of start doing a series like this. So I wanted to be able to talk about that maybe later on. But for those that are rewatching the broadcast, we won't necessarily like wait for everybody to get in here. So we'll just kind of jump into it and they can rewatch it later if they need to. I wanted to introduce the guests that are joining me tonight. Again, my name is Mitchell. This is a White Sox fan card collector channel. Coming here from the suburbs of Chicago. So hope to see you guys soon at the National if you're coming out to the show in a month's time. I wanted to introduce Alex Bowman 53. I think many of you are probably familiar with Alex and his content at this point. And wanted to also introduce RJ and Jake, who are going to be looks like their computer just shut down. I just got a text from them. So we'll have them come back in a minute.
They had enough. Okay.
Acknowledge that I got their text here.
All good.
Technical difficulties there on the East Coast this evening. So
yeah. Well, hey, it's great to be here. I'm sure they'll be back momentarily. So Mitchell, while we're waiting for them to come back, what made you pick this set to start with?
It actually started with a conversation between RJ and I. We were exchanging messages over YouTube about the set because we were both fans of it, and then he threw the idea out there of wanting to maybe do a live stream, and I was like, yeah, no, that'd be all right. And I definitely am a fan of the set and fully acknowledge, some of the flaws that it has, but I think there's a lot of things to be able to kind of highlight and celebrate too. So I thought, why not? And it's one that has even been covered recently within the YouTube community, and it's been done very well. But trying to do a little bit of a different take on it, just kind of celebrating the cards we love and why we love it. So,
right. Yeah, I think it's awesome because it's definitely a set that like most people wouldn't go to right off the bat. I think a lot of people kind of skip over it, maybe even forget about it. And it's awesome. I think it's a great idea to throw some light on it. So I'm excited to hear from you and from the Father Son Vintage Cards channel, what you guys think about it. And I mean, I've got a lot to learn about it, so I'm excited.
All right, great. Just even kind of introducing, if you want to talk just a little bit about your channel, if there's anybody on the stream that has not heard of you before, you want to talk
sure.
about what you kind of cover,
I mean,
things you'd like to collect.
Yeah, I just realized it's been, I think now 5 years since I started my channel. It doesn't really feel like I've been around that long. And really, there are tons of YouTubers that have been along for much longer than 5 years. But 5 years ago, I started my channel, and only a few months before I started my channel did I start collecting collecting as an adult. I had collected as a kid. Pretty much everybody knows at this point that I collected the 53 Bowman color set from start to finish. I know you're a fan of that set and have been collecting it. But of course, a lot of people love that set, so that's not too unusual. And finished that set, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. And now I'm mostly collecting. I'm definitely collecting vintage. I mostly stay in the 50s, but I also love pre-war. I have the same problem that we all have, which is that there's just so much great stuff out there, and it's hard to stay focused. But for the most part, I'm in the 50s. I really love New York baseball in that era. So like I'm collecting Yankees, New York Giants, Brooklyn Dodgers. I'm a Phillies fan, obviously. So there's that. And pre-war. So I'm kind of all over the place. But I'm really kind of picking and choosing. One of these days I'd love to collect a set again. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know when that's going to happen or what set it would be, but that's kind of where I am.
I feel like a lot of people are kind of in that place. I've been mostly a set collector since I've been in the hobby as an adult, but there's times where I'm like, you know what, I want to dabble in this and dabble in that, and then I go to
Yeah,
more collecting single cards from different sets. And as I discover new sets, I'm often looking and start trying to find cards from those sets, usually starting with White Sox players and White Sox Hall of Famers from those particular sets, which is
right,
interesting when we get to that topic for this set today.
right, right,
Oh, there's a couple people are saying hi in the chat there. We have Nina and Reese and Dre, my friend Dre, on here tonight. Thanks for joining, Dre.
right.
Appreciate it. So
Some good collectors.
I don't know if RJ's having a difficulty with his computer right now, so let me just see if he's going to come back here in a minute.
That is your initiation into the live stream world. So Mitchell, this is totally acceptable, par for the course. This is what happens. So it's all good.
Imagine it'd be worse if the host dropped it like I did. So.
Yeah.
All right, how'd you first hear or get exposed to the 1948 Bowman set? What was your
Yeah.
earliest memory of it?
It's definitely, I would say it's definitely not the set that gets your attention initially. I think when people, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but I think when people find out about vintage cards, there are certain cards and sets that kind of grab your attention, like rookie cards, like the Hank Aaron rookie card, for example, or maybe the Sandy Koufax. Like those kinds of cards are the ones that grab your attention and maybe get people initiated into vintage card collecting. And then once you're in, you start to see what else there is. And there's always to me, I remember like that, those early days of learning about vintage cards, I was really excited because I didn't know all the sets yet. And there's this excitement about maybe I'm going to uncover something really cool that I didn't know existed yet. And there are all these years of Bowman, and then you learn about Tops and Leaf and Fleer, and there's this excitement of like, what else is there out there that I don't know about? And at some point, I began to really become a fan of Bowman, obviously, and I started to read about their history and how they started, and obviously the competition between Tops and Bowman and so on. And that made me really excited about Bowman, and I wanted to just learn as much as I could about them and how they started. And of course, the 48 set is a huge part of the story. And so it was somewhere in there that I started to like not just see the cards, but also learn the history of the company, because those two things are so big. I mean, 48 is a huge year for that company, and it's a huge year for baseball cards.
For me, I have to go back to actually it's tied into 1953 Bowman. If when I was a kid, about 12 years old, Topps released the first Bowman set that they issued in 1989. And the
Right.
set itself was supposed to be designed after the 1953 Bowman color set, if you kind of remember, but with its own little take on it, with the unique Bowman design that they had designed on there. And they actually added signatures for their names on there as opposed to the 53 set that doesn't have it. Most famous
Right.
probably for the King Griffey Jr. rookie card in there, which is actually my favorite King Griffey Jr. rookie card. At some point, I want to nail down the Tiffany one and just get it in the collection. But if you remember, the packs had little redemption cards in there of old Bowman cards. Or on the back of the card, they would tell you how much it's valued now, like whatever the number may have been. And they had like, the 51 Mays and Mantle. They had a Schneider in there. I can't remember for what year, but they had a 48 card in there, and it was actually Yogi Berra. And I guess what you were supposed to do is if you turn these back into Tops, you get entered into a raffle to be able to win one of those cards. I never did that, but I did keep those as I was putting that set together back in the day, which I've since departed with at this point. But that was my first exposure, seeing a card from the 1948 Bowman set, and probably right around the same time you saw it in like the Beckett's. You could kind of look it up, and it was always the picture of Stan Musial on there, which it was very stoic in the way it kind of looked on there, which is consistent with the design of the 1948 Bowman set. So that was my earliest exposure with it. I think.
That's great.
Hopefully RJ can get back on there, but I was going to ask him the same question, but.
Right. No, that's good. That's all good. When they get on, we can certainly go back to stuff. Um, no, but that's so cool that you had such an early exposure to it. Um, and I mean, I want to wait for RJ and the guys to get back on, but I see some comments from 3D80s kid talking about when he first found out about it. Yeah. Um, and the dealer was talking about how he hates 48 and 49 Bowman because they're so ugly. Um, I definitely hear that about 48 Bowman more than I necessarily do about 49, but I think that 48 Bowman often gets disregarded because of, first of all, it's a small set. Second of all, the pictures sometimes are not as dynamic, let's say, and third of all, black and white. And so you can quickly skip over it for those reasons. And maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself, but I kind of want to talk about it. The black and white thing, there's a lot of, and I don't think this is just 48 Bowman. I think this is kind of an overall feeling with vintage, is that there's kind of there's this feeling that I get sometimes from collectors that black and white is just sort of like overlooked and not appreciated. And I get it. It's not color, and color definitely grabs your attention, and it's more vibrant and it's more interesting to look at. But I'm going to make my black and white pitch here. It's going to be a little silly, but bear with me. Like, some of the best photographs ever taken were black and white. Some of the best movies ever made were black and white. Like, there's some great stuff in our culture that were captured in black and white. And I think that there are some really incredible baseball cards that are black and white. And I think it's a little like people, I'm going to say this, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Collectors that dismiss black and white without really looking at the cards, I feel like they're missing out, because I do think that the 48 Bowman set has some really cool black and white cards in it. That's just me.
I'm glad you actually brought that point up, because that was going to be one of my points too. I wanted to check in and see. I see that looks like Jake and RJ may be rejoining us.
Are you here?
Are you? We are. Is your camera off?
We can hear you.
Point?
We are here.
I can't see you though.
Let me see.
Oh, the video might be coming on.
That's progress.
I think it's the camera.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
No, it's like the camera blocked by something.
No, so you're here.
We enjoyed the problem solving that we're hearing from you both. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah. To your point, Alex, I wanted to kind of build off of that too. If you can think about it, at that time, you couldn't get a detailed color picture on a baseball card.
Right.
You would get like your Gaudies and your Diamond Stars and even the 41 play balls, which would be like kind of paintings, things they would build off of a black and white photograph. So like if you wanted to see like the real details of kind of what it looked like minus the color, it was going to be a black and white photograph at that point. And we didn't really see the true color photographs really introduced into the cards until a little bit later. So I think it's fair to kind of put that in perspective when you're talking about the 48 Bowman set, is that in order for it to be color, it would be more of an art card for them to go that direction at that point. And I think I agree with you too. Some of even the cooler sets, I think are black and white sets where you can kind of get that level of detail in the background. You could really get a feel for this is what Babe Ruth looked like in a photograph.
Yeah.
This isn't a painting rendition of him. This is actually what Babe Ruth looks like. Right. So I think there's that bit of it too that I really enjoyed about the 1948 Bowman set.
There we go.
Hey, all right, guys. Homage to those.
Hey, guys.
Times past. Hey, welcome back.
Now we can hear.
Did get a chance to do. We can hear you guys. Yeah. We can hear you.
Hello?
You can hear us. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
I can't hear you now.
Oh no. Kind of building off of 3D kit. It's like a smaller version of the 39 play ball set. Absolutely.
Try one more time.
A spot on assessment of like the 48 Bowman set. So I did want to talk a little bit just about the set itself and kind of highlight, what is it, right? So it was released at some point in 48. I don't know when. I have a theory of maybe when it was released in 48, just based on some of the things that it's kind of lacking. So it's 48 cards in the set, and that's it. And it only includes 10 of the 16 teams. I don't know why, why there are 6 teams that are left out. There are some markets that had 2 teams that have no representation, hence the Chicago market. There's not a single White Sox card or a single Cubs card in that set.
This is another reason why it's interesting that you've chosen this set to talk about.
Right. Well, it's okay because it did get close to the Mississippi because it does include the Cardinals on there too. So there's a little bit of Midwest representation in that set, and also Cleveland as well. But so as a result of it, there are some players that were not included in this set, and even of the teams that were featured, there's some obviously clear big names that are not featured in there that you wish they were. But for that, and I think for the ones that are in there, there's a lot to celebrate because there's some big rookie cards within it. But I think this was an introduction, to get it back into producing cards on a wider scale that was going to be available to many people. There was some releases prior to that were smaller regional issues, but this was like a big scale issue, so that was really good. But I think they were ramping up because even though the first set was 48 cards, when they released the football set that followed was 108 cards, and all the teams actually were represented there. And by the time they got to, at some point, fall, maybe early winter, they released the first NBA set, which actually was the first one and then there was like a 10-year gap until I think the 57 tops or 58 tops came out as a basketball set. And at that point, you do start to see color backgrounds in there, which makes you big to wonder, was it they did that in result, knowing that Leaf was coming out with a baseball set that was color, or did they do it in advance of Leaf? We'll never know. The people that knew that stuff are long since passed. But it was just something to kind of be able to point out there. I think 3D's ADK pointed out, there's no DiMaggio. And would love to see later playing day DiMaggios, but there's just not that many.
No Ted
out
Williams
there.
either.
No Ted Williams either. And those were definitely big ones. And obviously no Robinson, Jackie Robinson, or Satchel Paige. I think we're kind of big misses there. In there.
All right.
All right. I think we might have everybody here now.
We went back to the phone.
Okay. Can you hear us all pretty well too?
Yep, we hear you.
All right.
Okay. All right. So I do want to stop to at least formally introduce you both. So this is Jake and RJ from Father Son Vintage Cards. You want to tell us a little bit about your channel, what you collect, and why do you love 1948 Bowman?
We started collecting back in January, and other than the 1967 set that we started from Grandpa, we said, let's collect vintage. So I did a little research, and the most affordable set, and we like black and white, was the 1948 Bowman.
Yeah. I think, didn't we start our March, like, first?
YouTube was in March. Collecting was probably about January.
Yeah, but so we started collecting in March through on, but we first started our first video in March, but it wasn't our first video, it was like a second, because our first video was actually my dad just did a solo just saying that we're a new YouTube channel, and I was at the bed at that time.
Why do you like the 48 Bowman?
I just like the people, I like more the 55 Bowman, because here, let me show you something.
Stay here.
It looks something just like this, but different. The Hank Aaron was a different.
The Hank Aaron card story.
Do you even know?
Why do you like the 48s?
The 48s, I mean, the thing is, the only reason I like the 48s because we got Yogi Berra rookie, we got Phil, and it's just.
Calls Rizzuto by his first name.
Good old Phil.
Yeah.
What do you want me to call him? Holy cow?
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Scooter. Yeah, go by his nickname. Yeah. Just some other things on the Bowman of that era. Actually, like one of the more expensive cards of the 3 sets they released in there is actually a basketball card. And it's one of the most expensive vintage basketball cards, period. Either of you kind of know who that was, or anyone in the chat know who's featured in 48 Bowman basketball? Because we'll talk about baseball. We'll get them covered.
No, I have no idea.
George Mikan. That's a pretty
Yeah.
famous basketball card, I guess. So I stumbled upon that and realized it was nearly as expensive as it was when I was kind of like looking up and researching the sets at that point. The last part I want to put out, the 6 teams that were not featured in here, like could have included some really cool teams, cool players from those teams. Obviously, the White Sox weren't included, so unfortunately, my Luke Appling could not be featured in a card there because he wasn't in the set. The Cubs were not featured as well. The Tigers, Newhouser, even though he was like winning MVPs at that point. The Red Sox of Ted Williams, were not in there. The Senators were not featured either. And the poor little St. Louis Browns got picked on in this one and were left out, but they got the Cardinals in there. So,
Right.
but the poor little Browns who were not included in the set itself. So I think we kind of acknowledged like some of the limitations as we kind of went through that set. And certainly probably could do a whole episode on that if we wanted to, but that's not how I feel about the set. And I think that's not what other people think either. So like, why do you, like, what are some of the pros, as you kind of think about it? So, Jake and RJ, what do you think are some of the things you like about the 48 design?
Well, I mean, the pictures could be a little bit better. I mean, the Spawn is probably the worst. They say the worst rookie card, which the Spawn and the Yogi, we are Yogi PC, are the 2 cards that we still need for the set. Those are the last 2 that we need. Oh boy, he's touching buttons.
That points out one of the cool things about this set is that because it is 48 cards, you can actually complete it. It's kind of an affordable vintage option of that era, because if you go back much earlier, it gets really expensive. And if you try to build the bigger sets of that era, it's expensive anyway. Some really big rookies are going to be in there 49 and throughout most of the 50s at that point.
Yeah, like you said, I'm a completionist, so I'm going to steal that word from a few other YouTubers. So this was an easy one to complete, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say that the biggest card in the 48 Bowman set is the Yogi Berra card.
Right.
Or who's number 1? Stan?
Stan.
What about Stan the Man?
Well, Yogi is the most hardest card to get. And a really good card, like really clean. Yeah,
wow, that's a great looking card.
Okay.
Look at that.
I'm starting to show off the cards there. Yeah, that is on my hunt list at that point to get Stan Musial, which is actually my father's favorite baseball player because he was a big Cardinal fan.
You know what? I want to say real quick,
though, and I became a White Sox fan.
There are definitely like not great looking cards in the 48 Bowman set, but you know what? There are also not great looking cards in every other set. Like every set has a bunch of duds. Maybe with the exception of 53 Bowman, I have to say. But
and I will say we just picked up the 53 Pee Wee 2 days ago, so we thought
there you go, great card. But like every set has a few cards that are like less than exciting. But I think there's some really awesome looking 48 Bowman. I mean, like I think the Yogi Berra card's awesome. I like the Stan Musial. Like, sure, he's not smiling, but that's okay. Like, and the other thing I was thinking about was like you got to remember the context. Like 1948. A kid rarely gets to see photographs of their favorite player. Like they can't really watch them on TV yet. And every now and then maybe they see a picture of them in the newspaper or something, but they don't get to see the player as much as they do now. So like that Stan Musial card is like, wow, that's what Stan Musial looks like. Like those cards were maybe the only time the kid got to see the player. And so like when you look at it that way, it's like some of them are, were like burned in the kid's memory as like that's what that player, like Yogi Berra or Bob Feller. I think the Bob Feller card's a really good looking card. Like that's how people saw those players.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite one from the set is the Bob Feller card.
Yeah,
I think partially because it's maybe my favorite Feller card in general, which is kind of funny of all the ones you potentially could select. I just kind of like the image on there. It looks like he's kind of like deep in concentration as he's kind of finishing his delivery, even though, it was a staged photo. The details in the background, you can really kind of make out the stands in here if you look at it close up. But, Bob Feller, like so many players of this era, spent so much time in the military during his prime. And as a result of it, he was still probably the best pitcher of his era. but his career numbers just don't like line up with some of the pitchers that he belongs in the same class with in my mind. So I'm always like in defense of Bob Feller, and I think just he was such a great ambassador for the game because of the late into his 90s. Signed tons of autographs for people throughout the years that I just am like. There's also an emotional attachment when I kind of see this card, because I just really kind of admired the man itself. In the same way as Stan Musial too, but I feel like Stan Musial kind of gets a little bit more love and appreciation in there.
Yeah, I would agree.
He was a really good Hall of Famer, though.
Definitely.
I just wanted to kind of like highlight a little bit too the ways that 48 Bowman have come back to the masses in some sense. So as I mentioned with the 89 Bowman release, you could kind of see a picture of a Yogi Berra rookie card at that point as far as a sweepstakes thing you could enter. In 2001, Topps not only introduced their Heritage set for their regular Topps release, but they had a short-lived Bowman Heritage run. And the first set they released actually was the 48 Bowman. They had obviously full-size cards in there that would kind of match the modern design. And that was a signed one by Magler Ordonez. But they also released within that set, they had autograph issues of some of the players that were still alive that were part of the original set. Stan Musial was not part of it, but he was actually part of the regular Bowman release. They re-released that image with the card. It was autographed. I guess it's a super short print, so that one's really expensive, but some of the other ones weren't, including Bob Feller, which I got picked up pretty recently.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was actually cut it in the same size as the original card, which I thought was really cool. When I got it delivered not too long ago, I thought it was going to be more of a full-size card. And ever since that time, they've kind of Topps periodically kind of alluded back to the 48 design when they've had some subsets. One other kind of denote of the 2001 Bowman Heritage set, though, is the Albert Pujols and the Ichiro cards that are in there are in the higher series, which actually are higher numbers, I should say, are actually more short printed cards. So it's actually, if you can get it inexpensive Pujols and inexpensive Ichiro rookies, that might not be a bad thing to look at if you actually kind of want to look at the design. They are more affordable in my mind than some of the base set cards that you could potentially get for those two players. But so it's been brought back a few times. Yeah.
Mitch, how many of the 48 Bowman players are in that Heritage?
I'm not sure if they reprinted, I think, all the cards in there, so you can get all 40 of them. But as far as what was autographed, the 3 Hall of Famers that I'm aware of, and at some point I'd like to get all 3, were Warren Spahn and then Yogi Berra would be the third one of those. But I think they also had like Bobby Thompson and stuff like that too.
That's such
some
a
of them
great
actually
idea.
being like signed by people at conventions and things and stuff like that you can get, because a lot of them are still alive. It was released.
Yeah.
All right,
great idea.
What are some of your favorite cards from the set? Just kind of, what are some things that stand out to you guys? And then RJ, I was going to kind of turn it over to you to kind of talk a little bit about how you kind of acquired your mass number of autographs that you have here too. But before we do that, is there some that you want to kind of share with the group?
Sure. So we have, did we lose Phil?
No.
Let's see. You show him? Yeah. Just hold him steady.
Okay.
So we showed Stan the Man.
Showed Stan the Man. Stan the Mino.
How about little Allie Reynolds?
Great card.
Yep.
Oh, the glare. There we go.
That's one of the better ones in the set, I think.
Yeah. Ferris Fane. You got it?
Ralph Kiner.
Ralph
Oh,
Kiner.
nice.
Yep. Ralph as well.
Very nice. And
what I like on the back of the Ralph Kiner card too is that they kind of allude to him as already being called another Babe Ruth.
Wow,
that's kind of interesting. History did not end up turning out that way for Ralph Kiner.
That's so rough to put on anybody's man.
51 home
And so you
runs.
got Ohtani, who's maybe better than Ruth, which is scary to believe that.
Yeah, right.
Let's do this.
I got the 1948 Bowman Ray Pot 2.5s. 3 CSG.
Great poke.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite one, or is it the Yogi's your favorite?
The Yogi's my favorite, but It would be amazing to hold it in my hand.
Someday. Yeah, if you're going to the National, if you see any yogis, you call me up. You let me know.
Yeah.
There should be plenty. Yeah, I'm gonna be hunting for a couple
This is our
too.
favorite right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the puffy shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Puffy shirt. You can't beat it.
Got a really nice
A puffy shirt, which is
silver
funny because there's an
center.
episode of Seinfeld, right, where they talk about Phil
Yes.
Rizzuto.
Yeah.
And the
Holy
puffy shirt
cow.
episode is also in there too. Interesting
Yeah.
tie-ins there.
That's cool.
Johnny Mize, this is kind of an interesting one because this is the exact same image they used for 48 Bowman on there. And he has like two different versions of his 49 Bowman card, one with his name on it, one without his name on it.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing. So you can get this particular image of Johnny Mize in three different cards.
I think
One from
our
48, two
autograph
from 49,
Mize,
but it's the same exact picture.
our
And it just
autograph
doesn't
Mize
look
is-
very happy, which a lot of the guys didn't at that point. But I think it was a choice by the photographers to kind of go for more of a stoic look, which they started really loosening up by the time they got the football set. So they must have like identified that this was maybe not working, because when you look at the football cards, they're pretty cool because they're like a lot of action shots and a lot of things you sometimes would see through the 50s in the football cards where they're kind of like, look, they're running or catching or about to throw. That's how it's like kind of featured all throughout the football set. In the basketball set, you have them like smiling, pretending to shoot, and just things that just are not featured on the baseball designs. It looked like they moved past that pretty quickly.
Seems like they learned from the 48 Bowman what not to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I really like the 58 and 55 football Bowman because the color and the shots are pretty cool.
Mhm.
I mean, the color is amazing.
All right. So for those of you who actually follow Jake and RJ, they did an episode not too long ago where they showcased a good number of autographed 48 Bowman cards. So I think humor us with that story once again. And, I would love for people feel free to put in the chat some questions they may have about it because it's pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were originally going for a Johnny Sane that was on eBay for sale, and I just missed out on it. So I figured let me send him an email and see if he has any more. So he wound up having 19 more, and we came upon a deal, and very fair deal, and very nice guy. And then when I did the story on YouTube, I sent him a text and I said, "Can you tell me a little bit about your father?" And he basically said, Barry Matthews was his name. He just passed away this past year, and he was from Detroit, and he would go to the ballpark and to the minor league field, and he would wait for the players in their hotel and try and get autographs from, I would say, the 60s or 70s till the time he passed away. And I was just talking to his son Ian today, and he said they're still getting cards in the mail that he sent for autographs, PTM in the mail, and that threw me off a little bit.
That's amazing.
Just a great guy, and we got 19. We just sent 10 of them off to PSA, so who knows when we'll get those back. We still have 9 of them here, and
You want me to
sure, nice and easy with that one. That one's a little fragile.
Bill Rigney.
Yep.
Autograph. Now, the funny thing is, when he gave us the cards, he put these little stickers on them.
He did his own thing with his cards.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
See?
If I recall quickly, they put like a nameplate on there, right?
Yeah,
Who the player
almost
was.
like a sticky letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very cool.
Some of them don't. Here, I'll show this one.
This one doesn't. Yep. Ewell Blackwell doesn't. So that one's
Okay, Ewell Blackwell doesn't. He was a really good one right back then. So this one, some of them, like this one, he put the name on the top instead, and on this one, he wrote a little bit on the back. Can't show him the camera.
Yeah, it's kind of tough with this phone.
Right.
Yeah, you guys are doing the best you can, I think, given you're working
Here's
off
a
of
Jack Lorkey.
Yep.
Wow.
And if the audience is having a hard time being able to see it, go to his channel because you can actually pull up the video. It was done fairly recently, so you can actually see them more close up.
I mean, the cards are awesome, but it's even better that they all come from a collector, and you have that story.
Amazing.
That's so great.
From one man.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's so unique. Yeah.
Here's the Larry Jansen. One more.
Nice.
All right.
It's kind of fun reading the backs of the cards on these as you're doing that. There's like so many of these ball players were actually in the military during World War II.
Sure.
A good majority of them, just because it's so obviously close to the end of World War II. But I think that's also something, at least of that era, it's not unique in the era, but I think it's for a fan of the set. I think it's fun just kind of being able to read some of those profiles and then look up, learn a little more about the player itself and, what they did during that time in their life.
Right.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, like, it's a few years after World War II, and it's the first set that they got back up and running with, and it's the start, right? Like, it's the dawn of, the golden era of bubblegum cards in the 50s. Like, it all starts with this set. And like you said, they start to make improvements. It's like, okay, let's think about the photography and let's bring in color and then, all that stuff. And little by little, they just keep improving. And then Topps comes around. And I mean, it's the start of all of it, which is just really kind of cool.
Speaking of bubblegum, the price of the packs were 1 cent. You get one card, one stick of gum. Or if you paid 3 cents, you could get a 3-cent pack that had 3 cards and 3 sticks of gum. Just it's amazing kind of thinking about how expensive some of the products are these days. And I'm sure that a cent was no small amount for a kid of that time, but I'm sure it was not comparable to what we have to put out now to be able to pick up cards.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody has seen this book before. But this is a great read. And just the fact that Bowman was making $40,000 a week with these cards, which is equivalent to like 500,000. I think we looked up. That's amazing.
Nuts. Yeah.
It was such a simple design too. It's amazing. Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I had a theory of maybe when these cards came out. I really feel like they came out towards the end of the baseball season. And I think that's why maybe it was a rush to get them out. That's why they only had 48 cards. And they didn't get to all the teams. I think whoever was taking photos only had a brief time period to be able to kind of travel to a few cities to get as many teams as it could. Did it, and then they try to get to printing as soon as possible. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that's why it's such a small set. And I think it only took 1 print sheet, I think, to be able to fit all these on there, or maybe 2, which made it a little bit easier for them to be able to print these cards.
They did 2 print sheets, 36 on each sheet, and there was 12 on the other, and that's why there's a short print of some of them.
Very cool. And baseball, of course, was big, but like post World War II, they had taken a few years to get back into making cards. So maybe they were a little gun shy too. Like, let's see how this goes. And then of course the boom happens like pretty quickly. And then you have Leaf, who comes out the same year. And I'm sure Bowman looked at that and said, like, whoa, what are we going to do to respond to that? They also obviously got into a legal battle with Leaf. And that was a legal battle that Bowman won, which was like contract disputes about going after players and stuff. But that Leaf set definitely helped kind of fan the flames for card designs in the late 40s. So it all starts though with this set, I think.
Yeah. I think they wanted to capitalize on the bubblegum.
Right.
All right.
Do either of you guys have the Bobby Thompson rookie?
Yeah, that's him with PSA.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That was actually one of the autographs.
Yeah. Maybe just a few more cards. We kind of move into our final segment. This was the first one I got, actually, and I knew about the set before then. And I was working on getting St. Louis Cardinal Hall of Famers, and I got the Enos Slaughter on there. In an authentic, it's clearly trimmed. You can see it from the naked eye if you had it in your hand. But otherwise, I mean, the picture on there is very clear, and the image is very easy to be able to make out on there. I think it's a lot of fun just kind of looking at the card itself there. But anyway, it was my dad's favorite team and my grandfather's favorite team. Probably they remember going to games in the early parts of the 50s. My family is actually originally from Central Illinois, and my father and grandfather would drive down to St. Louis to go to games, and they would go to Sportsman Park and see the Cardinals, or they would also see the Browns sometimes down there too. So they kind of gravitate towards collecting cards from those two teams as a result of it.
Yeah, we're from New Jersey. I don't know if we said that. Alex, you're from Philadelphia?
I live in Georgia, but I'm originally from like an hour outside of Philly. So I used to spend summers in Jersey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, do we see that?
Nice. Here's a, I mean, we showed it already, but just the fact that he won 2 MVPs and a World Series prior to this card is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that card. It's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there was definitely that period of time where we had nothing, right? For a 6-year period from 42 to 340. Well, I guess there was some stuff in 47, but no national released products. Just think of all the players that finished their careers during that time frame, and so many that started their careers. And we just kind of missed out in some ways of kind of getting, their rookie cards. Although I guess in some sense we do get them through 48 and 49, but many years after they actually debuted too.
Right.
But we missed like the last years of like Jimmy Fox, for example. Being able to get a card of him playing with the Chicago Cubs would have been very interesting, since he's not known or famous for being with that team. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we wanted to also kind of transition into just kind of doing a little player profile. We kind of did a little digging in on a couple players that we wanted to kind of profile. Jake and RJ, I'll turn it over to you to kind of do the one you decided to select.
All right. Well, we're going to go with our, what's his name again, Jake?
Phil, is he
Oh,
there?
Phil. Yeah, Phil.
Phil.
So we're gonna go with Phil, our guy, and Scooter.
Yeah, can you hold me on it?
Yeah. Hold it still, nice and still. Got it.
Have you guys seen the full version of that photograph?
We were just watching
something,
and it looks like he's jumping in the air for like his glove is between his legs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's making a play. Yeah. I mean, like when I finally saw that picture, it changed the way I looked at that card, because the card is so goofy. But like when you see the full picture, it's like, okay, I get it now. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought he was doing sliding practice. I had no idea it actually was like in the field playing.
It looks like a ball.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Weird. But yeah, Scooter, 5 foot in high school, wound up being 5'5" in the majors. His first contract was for $78 a month.
Wow.
For the Yankees. $78. What else? First player in the American League to wear a batting helmet. Another fun fact.
Wow. I don't know how I knew that.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that either.
I think isn't it in that like museum in New York?
New Jersey.
In New Jersey, the concerts.
We were just watching Rizzuto getting into the Hall of Fame, and that's another thing. Phil getting into the Hall of Fame 10 years after Pee Wee Reese. That's insane.
Remember
he was a Veterans Committee guy, right?
Yeah, Veterans Committee. Yogi called him up and told him, and they lived in the same town towards the end of their days, Yogi and Phil, in Montclair, New Jersey.
Thanks.
And Phil was in an assisted living at the end of his life, and Yogi would go there every day and play cards with him.
Oh, that's
Hold
awesome.
his hand till he fell asleep. Phil was 8 years older than Yogi, so. And then Yogi passed away 8 years later.
I thought the reason Phil Rizzuto was 8 years older than him is that I thought that was why, that was how Yogi Berra got his number at number 8 because of Phil.
That makes sense. It kind of does make sense.
Another fun fact, Ted Williams quoted, if Phil Rizzuto was on our team, we would have won all those championships.
For any team, not only his.
Very underrated, Phil.
Underrated.
The 1950 MVP.
Yep.
He was not underrated. He was overrated.
Some people might say he was, but I'm not
Yeah.
one of them. Yeah. Best Yankee shortstop of all time, Jake. Who do you think? Rizzuto or Jeter?
No.
There's only one right answer, in my opinion.
Right.
That's right.
Well, there's one of the best shortstops of all time on the Yankees: Phil, Jeter, and Volpe.
There you go.
Volpe
Phil
could
was
be.
the best shortstop for 40 years till Jeter.
So this is it. First place is Phil. Second place is Jeter. Third place is Volpe. But my friend always told me that first is the worst and second is the best.
I was just going to ask
Tricky.
because I thought you were going with their numbers until you said 3. But I thought Rizzuto number 1, Jeter number 2. That was their uniform numbers, right? So
Yeah.
I actually went with a non-Hall of Famer. I'm going to actually feature Dutch Leonard.
Nice.
So I picked this one for a couple of reasons, but one in particular I kind of get to at the end. So first of all, he's not the first person to go by Dutch Leonard in Major League Baseball. If you can think back, I believe it may have been, I can't remember what set it was in the 70s where they featured the single season ERA leader and the career ERA leader on one card, and they had Dutch Leonard on there. But that is actually the Dutch Leonard that played during the dead ball era. But that is actually how he got his nickname, was actually from that ball player. I'm not sure the extent of why he got that one, or if he was a fan of that ball player, or if the person that nicknamed him that knew the ball player. But anyway, that's how he got his nickname. His WAR was just under 50 at 48.9. So he actually played for a long time. He actually pitched for 20 years, from 33 all the way through 53. So he's actually kind of featured in some kind of cool sets during that period, including the 41 play ball, which I think is a really cool set. At some point, I want to start getting cards from that one. He's actually also from Illinois. So maybe a little bit closer to my heart there too, just like me. Appeared in 6 different All-Star games, played with the Dodgers, the Senators, the Phillies, and ended his career at the Chicago Cubs. Unfortunately, led the league twice in losses, so that's the only time he led the league in any category, unfortunately. Was a 20-game winner once in his career. He was known as a knuckleball pitcher at one point during the 1940s when he was with Philadelphia. They had 4 different primary knuckleball pitchers on the team. And I think that's the only time that that's actually happened, where
That's awesome.
the rotation featured knuckleball pitchers on there, which is kind of interesting when I found that out too. He, speaking of the Yankees, he actually was pitching in the doubleheader, the first game of the doubleheader, and actually beat the Yankees that day on the day that Lou Gehrig gave his speech when he was retiring, and he gave his luckiest man in the world speech. He was the winning pitcher of game 1 on that day. So a little bit of tie-in with the Yankees there. So I thought Jake and RJ might appreciate that.
Yeah.
Wanted to say that after his career, so he was briefly a pitching coach, major league pitching coach for a little while, and he actually stepped down from that. But what was kind of close to my heart is that he started working as a youth counselor with the Illinois Youth Commission, which now is kind of known as the the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice. And what he did with the kids is that he did baseball camps. He did baseball camps with the young men that were involved with the criminal justice system at that point, ideally trying to be able to help them be a role model and kind of learn new ways of being able to kind of socialize with one another, but also help them to kind of identify their goals. While at the same time they were doing things recreationally, so they were having a lot of fun. So he spent his the second half of his life in social services, which is actually what I do for a living. So I felt kind of a little bit of an appreciation for him as I learned more about him, because his heart was very big, because he obviously reached out to a lot of troubled individuals, and hopefully ended up being turned on the right path. And at one point he was kind of asked about, why did you choose to do that with the rest of your career? And he said, if I can have just an impact on just one life, it's totally worth it. And that's kind of the philosophy of which that I tend to operate a little bit too, and the people that I work with, as we kind of work with some of the more I guess, unfortunately challenged in some ways because of life circumstances by the time they come into our organization where I work. So I definitely appreciate that perspective. So that was Dutch Leonard. Hope you guys kind of appreciated hearing a little bit about him.
Very cool.
Yeah, Mitchell, that's so great, and I love that it all starts with a baseball card. It's amazing how far you can go into something meaningful by just looking up a player that you see on a baseball card. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Do either of you guys have Billy Johnson, who was a Yankees player? Either of you guys have that card? Kind of an obscure common card.
Yeah. I don't believe I have that one yet.
He's like making a throw. Yes, there it is. Perfect.
No, I don't have it yet.
So I'm a big sucker for looking for cards that just jump out at me. And that card, when I went through the set, it just jumped out at me. I just love it. It's a really cool action shot. And I've added it to my wish list. So really quickly, Billy Johnson.
There's another Yankee that does a very similar pose.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I noticed that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the third baseman for the Yankees. He was an all-star in 47. He played on 4 World Series champion teams for the Yankees. So 43, 47, 49, 50. So he was right in there with Joe DiMaggio, and then later on with Berra, Whitey Ford, Johnny Mize, and our friend Phil. And he played a lot in a lot of those classic series with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He got traded in 1951 to the Cardinals because they needed him to get out of the way because Gil McDougald was coming up, and he at the time was the big prospect. So they had to get rid of Billy the Bull Johnson. That's his nickname too, Billy the Bull Johnson. So I just think that's a cool card, and I love little snippets of history from the more common players. So that's the card that I definitely want to take a look at, maybe picking up at some point.
Yeah, and he's like I said with Yogi and Phil, he was born in Montclair, New Jersey. And Alex, where do you live now?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia, but he's from Augusta.
He lives in Augusta, yeah.
Yeah, not too far from me.
Very cool. A little bit more about Phil. I'm sure everybody knows he was a Yankee announcer for decades and decades and decades.
Sure.
With different sidekicks. And when they put him in the Hall of Fame, he was close. Tom Seaver. So Tom Seaver was his sidekick in the booth for a little bit, and they wound up putting his plaque right next to Tom Seaver's in the Hall of Fame, which was nice.
I didn't notice that when I was there. That's true, I guess. Yeah. I'm a sucker for pictures. I love pictures. Yeah. So yeah.
Guys, I'm going to show you all stuff.
Jake wants to show you his new pickup, his Phil Rizzuto bat. I don't know if you can see that. There it is.
Oh, yeah. Easy down there.
Picked this up at the last card show.
Beautiful.
While we're doing that, is there anything else we wanted to kind of add or highlight about 48 Bowman? Like, what makes 48 Bowman great was kind of the question that led into this episode.
I'm
anything we're missing?
I'm an artist at heart. So the black and white in high school, I was a photographer in high school.
Awesome.
So, dark room was my thing. So artist. So black and white really popped out at me. So that's where I went with that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think there's a lot of really cool. I mean, it's a small set, but there are some great looking cards in it. I think it gets overlooked, and I think it gets dumped on a little bit. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there. It may not be as immediately as exciting as, say, I don't know, pick any other set like 53 Tops or whatever. But there's some great cards in there. Some important cards too, not just rookies, but just that era of baseball coming back out of World War II. And even the stories, I always think okay, it doesn't have Ted Williams, it doesn't have, Joe DiMaggio, but even though it would be cool if those players were in there, it's also kind of cool to learn the history of what was happening, because now we're spoiled, right? Every player, no matter how obscure, has a card for Tops. And there's 600 different versions of the card, right? And chrome and parallels and whatever. But at the time, like certain players didn't always have cards. Like even the greatest players, like imagine Mike Trout not having a card one year. That would be insane, right? But like Joe DiMaggio doesn't have a card. Ted Williams doesn't have a card. And that's kind of interesting. Like it sucks, but it's also like you learn how the process of like these companies worked and like the battles between Topps and Bowman and all that. And that to me is also kind of interesting. So there's always something to get out of the different sets.
Yeah. 62% of the set is Hall of Fame. 62% of the set is rookies with 8 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You can't beat it.
Can't beat it.
All right. Final word as we kind of wrap up here on Bowman. Any other final thoughts before we kind of?
Sorry about the beginning. What did we miss in the beginning?
Didn't miss too much.
There was a massive giveaway.
Yeah.
Gave away autographs, Stan Musial, 48 Bowman rookie.
Yeah, that was good.
I'll tell you I had that one. Yeah, but wish I had that one.
Technical stuff.
All right. Well, I hope people who tuned in enjoyed this. I see a lot of familiar names that are in the room. Thank you all for joining. I'm pretty flattered that you were able to kind of jump in and join like the first live stream that I was able to host like this. I want to thank Alex for agreeing to help me out and get this started, and Jake and RJ coming up with the idea of doing this set in particular. I think through us messaging each other over YouTube, we decided to kind of jump on this. I'm hoping to actually kind of make this a series. So if there is a set out there that people believe is great and they would like to see us talk about it, feel free to kind of send me a message. You can find me on Instagram or the Facebook page I have also for my channel, or just through YouTube as well. You can kind of add a comment here as you're watching this. And it doesn't have to be vintage exclusively either, because I actually do appreciate modern cards as well. If you watch my channel, you know I'm like working on a modern project now that I'm getting really close to finishing. So I would love to talk about that one too, if I can find some like-minded individuals.
Well, Mitchell, you and I have a similar set, the 67, so I'm in on that.
Yeah, we found that out. I just finished a 67 set and you guys are working on it, so that might have to be on the agenda in the future. So talk about those
Alex,
terrible high series cards.
What's your next set now that what's your next set, Alex?
Yeah, that's always the question, right? Right now there is no set. I'm just cherry picking cards at this point. One of these days I might do another set build, but not anytime soon.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm kind of just enjoying just randomly picking up cards here and there.
Yeah.
But set builds are so much fun. So I'll definitely do it again someday.
Yes, a recommendation for 87 Donruss there from a good friend Robbie, who's appeared on my channel a few times too. I was going to joke and say our next video will be on 91 Fleer, but I knew that somebody would kind of pick on me and like, hey, I love 91 Fleer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, RJ. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we'll be in touch.
We can't see the comments. So. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Have a good
See you later, guys.
Bye.